Welcome to Hypnotic Authenticity. My name is Chris. I'm a practical, grounded hypnotherapist. I'm based in Switzerland, and this is a space that I have created to foster a genuine sense of inner settling. A place to harmonize with yourself and bring about the improvements to your well-being that, I don't know, maybe perhaps you thought were literally impossible. So my episodes are an invitation to reconnect with all that is alive inside you, to examine the stories that you live your life by, and to maybe soften the edges of what it is that you believe yourself to be in order to create a bigger, broader, more expansive sense of your personal agency and your personal understanding. So I'm going to be talking about identity, about existence, about self-resonance, self-harmony, about authenticity. And that'll all be wrapped up with a sprinkling of hypnosis or guided meditation to help you settle, to help you align and return to yourself. So if you're ready, take a breath and let's begin.
I'm going to tackle a chewy subject today. I'm going to talk about death. It's kind of important to talk about death because death narrates our experience of life. Personally, I was petrified of death. I was really, really afraid of death. And that dictated the way that I lived my experience. I had this urgency to use my moments in the day, to use each day. I had a concept of time as a scarce commodity, as something which was here today, gone tomorrow, and therefore needed to be used. Now, that probably helped me to a certain extent, okay? So that gave me a sense of urgency about doing things, about using the day in a great way. But I'm not sure it was particularly fulfilling in itself. And it certainly didn't adjust or change my concept of dying, of death. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about this through the eyes and ears of Epictetus, Rufus, and Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics. Because the Stoics had a fantastic view upon death, which I kind of hold heart. There's nothing quite like coming. It was probably about 10 or 15 meters away, face to face with a mountain lion, or being in a near-death experience in a car crash, to contemplate the idea that, well, when it's your time, and for whatever reason, clearly that wasn't my time. Because the Stoical perspective, the broad Stoical perspective anyway, on death, is that it's inevitable. It's something that you have no control over. The aging process occurs. And so if it's something that you have no control over, why would you waste your energy worrying about it? Okay, that's one part of their story. Another part of their story is, well, when you're dead, you won't be there. So you won't be conscious about it. You won't know about it. So whilst you're here, enjoy what you have. And when you're dead, well, there's nothing to be dead about. And so that's another kind of logical way of saying, well, you know, it's silly. It's silly to worry about death. But it turns out it's not really the death which is scary, right? It's the process of dying. It's the process of turning off your consciousness. Is it going to be a painful experience? Am I going to be alone? How am I going to stare my thoughts and my feelings and my judgment in the face on my deathbed? Is there an afterlife? Is there a day of reckoning? All those kind of stories. But the thing is that fear is misplaced, okay? Fear is a funny thing, okay? Fear is trying to get you to prepare yourself to take action about something which is potentially dangerous in the future. But the thing with death is It's not as if it's something that you can prepare against. You can maybe eat good food and maybe do exercise and value your time on this earth, but ultimately it's going to come when it's going to come. It's completely outside of your control. So it's questionable whether it's useful to fear death. And the fear of dying, the fear of that potential that you might hurt or that you might be alone or that you might judge yourself in a different way. Well, okay, so use that as a spur to look after yourself, to value your time on this earth. Perhaps consider your actions today with the sort of an eye on, well, when my time is over, would I consider this to have been a valid and useful use of my time? Perhaps that's useful. But the entire process of being afraid of it is totally nonsensical. For a start, if you can't control it, there's nothing you can do about it that would shift the experience. Plus the fact that when you die, you're not there to be aware of it anyway. So the fear of the turning off, I mean, before you were born, you had no concept of who or what you were. So presumably, when you die, you have no concept of who or what you are. Even if you have a concept of the soul, is that a sentient conscious soul, which is part of, our science tells us when the brainstem is dead, that's it, our consciousness is gone, our aliveness is gone, let's say. So, there are other ways to look at this. You find people, they tend to be quite egotistical. You find people who think that there are ways to defy dying, that with the correct diet, the correct exercise, the correct technological process, perhaps somehow the act of uploading your consciousness to a supercomputer, that there is a way to defy dying, to become immortal. And I think it's very, very useful to go back to the Stoics on this one as well. So the Stoics have this concept of being in harmony with nature. You can consider this from the chemical composition perspective, okay? So when we arrived, we were a transfer of energy from one type of source. Apparently we're all made up of stardust anyway, and when we die, ashes to ashes, dust to dust sort of thing, we return. So we're simply a transformation of nature from one type to another, and during that brief period, we have this awareness, we have this experience on the earth, and then we return to what we were already, which is an extension, an expression of the universe, rather than us as individuals being separate from all this, that in actual fact, all this and I and you and all the people and all the birds and all the furry animals and all the crawling animals and the snakes and the mountain lions, we're all somehow one. We're all an expression of the universe and the cycle of life and all that stuff. In actual fact, you are breathing life through the universe, and that this is your moment in time where nature expresses that this is your time for consciousness, but then nature will evolve and continue. And if we were all immortal, well, would there even be room for all of us? Is there not a certain virtue in living your life to the best of your abilities, but being fair to your fellow man, to all the people that will come after us, and giving them a space on this earth too? The Romans, it's not so much a Stoic perspective, but the Romans and their perspective on gods were very, very hot on this idea of hubris. You do not go beyond your station in life. You can pontificate, you can achieve, you can have a fantastic life, but never forget to be humble, to appreciate what you have, and to understand the limits of your power. And if you're considering that egocentrical kind of deistical approach of defying death, but for me personally, that's coming from a position of massive control freak come fear-driven narrative, none of which is helpful for enjoying your moment now. And I think that's the most important thing about considering death. It's a fantastic thing to consider death. It's a fantastic thing to consider what you consider to be the order and the nature of time. Once you can see things from that perspective of circularity, of cyclicality, of this moment when your conscience disappears, that you won't be aware of it anyway, that before you were alive and your consciousness was, I don't know, depending upon the story of what you consider to be existence, was either floating around waiting for a body to come along or simply didn't exist. Or, it depends if you want to go down the nihilistic route or the atheistic route or the sort of universal route or the religious route. Whichever route you take, there is no awareness of what was going on before you were born, and presumably there'll be no awareness of what will happen once your conscious computer turns off. So there's nothing to fear. And more to the point, when you can appreciate that you are part of all of this, that you're no longer pushing against the system, but that you are the system, that you are an expression of the system, that all of this and you are related, that somehow this extraordinary beauty which you get to play in, which you get to live an adventure of. Okay, so when I'm walking down to this slot canyon, somehow or other I am living a little adventure which talks about the interplay of my relationship with myself, my relationship with my fears, my relationship with the universe, and testing myself and understanding what it is to be me to a certain extent. Okay, so all of that is utterly free and fascinating. And I think that is the best thing about considering your understanding of death. Because the end result is you live a little richer, you live a little freer, you live appreciating the beauty of everything around you, you live contemplating the consequences of your actions on your fellow man, because your fellow man turns out to be you, that all of this turns out to be you. I talked before about picking up these mocky balls. I don't know if you've seen a mocky ball. It's an extraordinary thing. I looked at them, I photographed them, I thought how stunning they were. I contemplated them in the perspective of the age in which I view them. And then I put them back. And I can't explain to you the joy that I felt in putting them back for somebody else to find them, for them to exist in their place that somehow or other they were meant to be. We all have a right to exist in our moment. And then our moment is gone, just like the dinosaurs. When you can put all of that into perspective, my word, can you enjoy today? That's the only thing I'm trying to get at, okay? So once you contemplate your own death, which might sound a little bit morbid, end result is, wow, how you can suck the marrow out of life, even when, in the words of Elmer Fudd, I am totally alone. All right, thanks for watching. I hope that is of interest. Check out Irving Yalom if you're interested in specific concepts on death. You might also want to consider this idea of psychological illusion, because that is what drives your fear. You are labeling a thought, giving it significance, and then living your life in accordance with that. And it turns out the whole thing is fictitious. So that can be very, very useful. Look up psychological illusion. I learned something from science, in actual fact, that might be useful on the perspective of death, and that is that if you consider Richard Dawkins and the evolution of the planet and what it is to be alive on this earth, and natural selection, and the way that all these exquisite, intricate beauties, all of the extraordinary things that you would think required a god to be created because they are so intricate, the concept of the brain as a simple example, the individual cell. Well, it turns out that even the way in which we live, exist, are born and die, well, that is biologically selected to, okay? Bacteria don't do that. Bacteria don't die of old age, apparently. So what we've come up with is something that, from an evolutionary perspective, makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense for us to be born, to thrive, and then to die, and to return that energy back to the world. You might want to consider that, right? These are all just ways of getting out of the story of your head, getting out of your ego, and considering the bigger picture and accepting that, living within harmony of the oneness, of source, of whatever it is that you choose to call it, and enjoying that rather than judging it. I used to think, even when I got beyond the idea of death being a scary thing, once I decided that death wasn't a scary thing, I still thought it was terrifically frustrating, though, unfair, that I had to die, as if I could somehow omnipotently, stomp my foot on the ground and say that this wasn't fair and make the clock stop turning. But then it turns out that even the clock is fictitious, that even my understanding of time is my perspective. There's nothing quite like having an experience in life, a near-death experience where you see time slow down, to completely affect your perspective on what it is to be you inside this world and the way that you tell the story to yourself. So there's no need to be frustrated anymore. There's no need to push against the system. You can relate to the system. You can look after the system. You can be kind to the system because it's part of you. So the whole thing is a sort of an egotistical thing, right? It's self-interest as well as other interest, because there is no self and other. The whole thing is one.
Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If it resonates with you, then follow my podcast. I would also personally be really grateful if you might wish to leave a quick rating. It genuinely helps others to discover the podcast. If you personally would like more guided meditations, you want some deeper insights, you'll find all my links in the description. If you prefer a more visual boost, then you might want to check out my YouTube channel called Authentic Life Hypnosis. And if you're looking to do some deeper work that goes beyond one-way audio, then obviously you're very welcome to reach out. Equally, if you have any questions, I'm here to help. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.